First, what happens if you sit down every day? Source: ChatGPT. Sitting for long periods of time can have some adverse health effects, especially if you don't have proper posture and rest. Here are some possible impacts. Muscle atrophy and stiffness. Sitting for long periods of time can cause muscle atrophy and stiffness, especially in the back, neck, and shoulder muscles. This can cause discomfort and pain. Blood circulation problems. Sitting for long periods of time may slow blood circulation and increase the risk of varicose veins and blood clots. Metabolic issues. Prolonged sitting is associated with a reduced metabolic rate, which may increase the risk of chronic diseases such as obesity, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. Postural issues. Staying in the same position for long periods of time can lead to poor posture, which increases stress on the neck, back and waist, ultimately leading to pain and other health problems. Mental health issues. Sitting for long periods of time may be associated with mental health issues, such as anxiety and depression. To mitigate these effects, it is recommended that you stand up and move around every once in a while. Stand up and move around every 30 minutes or so and do some stretching exercises to help improve blood circulation and reduce muscle fatigue. Maintain good posture. Keep your spine upright when sitting, with your feet flat on the ground and your elbows at a 90-degree angle to the table. Appropriate physical activity. At least 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity aerobic exercise, such as brisk walking, biking, or swimming, and 2 or more muscle strengthening activities, such as weightlifting or push-ups. Maintain a proper weight. Managing your weight through a healthy diet and moderate exercise can help reduce the health problems associated with sitting for long periods of time. To summarize, sitting for long periods of time can have adverse health effects, but by adopting appropriate measures and behaviors, these effects can be mitigated and overall health improved. Sitting for long periods of time will bring you 7 major dangers. It's terrible. Source: Kong Jian. No matter whether you go to the gym or jog regularly, if you spend more than 6 hours a day in the office, in the car, or on the couch, you are putting yourself at risk for cancer, diabetes, heart disease, chronic kidney disease, and premature death. Prolonged sitting is the new smoking hazard. James Levine, professor of endocrinology at the Mayo Clinic in the United States, believes that prolonged sitting should be regarded as an obvious health risk behavior and deserves clearer guidance from the public health community. The American Cancer Society examined the sitting time and mortality rates of 120,000 Americans over 14 years and found that women who sat for more than 6 hours a day had a 37% higher risk of dying prematurely from various diseases than those who sat for less than 3 hours a day. Men had 18% more. According to past statistics, smoking 1 cigarette may reduce life expectancy by 11 minutes. Researchers from the University of Queensland in Australia calculated that the harm of watching TV for 1 hour is about the same as smoking 2 cigarettes, which means losing 22 minutes of life. In the past, we thought that sitting for long periods of time would only cause enlargement of the lower body or pain in the lower back. Little did we know that sitting for long periods of time has become a killer in the new century. Many studies have confirmed that sitting for long periods of time is dangerous. Include cancer. Sitting for long periods of time is linked to 100,000 cases of cancer each year, especially breast and colorectal cancer. Christine Friedenreich, an epidemiologist at Alberta Health Services in Canada, believes that prolonged sitting and inflammation are related to other indicators of cancer risk. Diabetes, heart disease. A study of more than 800,000 people by the University of Leicester in the UK found that the group of people who sat the longest were twice as likely to suffer from heart disease and diabetes as those who sat the least. Chronic kidney disease. The same study from the University of Leicester also found that compared with women who sit for less than 3 hours a day, those who sit for more than 8 hours a day have a 30% greater risk of developing chronic kidney disease, which may be related to poor blood circulation caused by prolonged sitting. Pulmonary embolism. A study published in the British Medical Journal, BMJ, found that women who sit for long periods of time are twice as likely to develop pulmonary embolism than those who are hyperactive. Pulmonary embolism has a high mortality rate and is one of the most common causes of cardiovascular death. Pulmonary embolism is when blood clots from elsewhere in the body travel to the lungs. People who are immobile are more likely to form blood clots. Obesity. Guo Jiahua, a professor in the Department of Exercise Physiology at the Taipei Institute of Physical Education, said that since the Second World War in the United Kingdom and the United States, human caloric and fat intake have actually been declining, but people have become more and more obese. This became a turning point in the 1980s when televisions and cars became widely popular. That is because people sit for long periods of time. Waist. The difference is most noticeable in waist circumference. A study by the University of Queensland found that when sitting for long periods of time, the waist circumference of the top 25% of people who stood up the most was 4.1 centimeters smaller than the waist circumference of the 25% who stood up the least. Lu Kenhong, director of the Rehabilitation Medicine Department of Shuanei Hospital, explained that sitting for long periods of time will change the composition of the body, causing muscle mass to decrease and fat to increase. The increased fat will move to the areas with the most space in the body, such as the lower abdomen or buttocks. Sleep. Research by Douglas Bradley, director of the Sleep Center at the University of Toronto, found that if you sit at work and watch TV after get off work, you will develop sleep apnea. Because sitting for a long time, fluid will form in the legs. When people lie down, the fluid will run to the neck and block the respiratory tract, causing apnea. Unfairly, sitting hurts women more. The same study from the American Cancer Society pointed out that compared with those who sit for less than 3 hours a day, those who sit for 6 hours a day have a 40% higher mortality rate for women, while for men it is nearly 20%. It may be because women exercise less and do less outside work than men. Sit down. What went wrong? Scientists have determined that as long as you remain seated for 1 hour, one of the hormones that can break down fat and cholesterol in the blood, hormone-sensitive lipase, will stop, and the amount of fat burned will be reduced by 90%. Dr. Lu Kenhong pointed out that as long as you sit down and relax your muscles, this enzyme cannot be activated, fat will accumulate in the blood, and the concentration of good cholesterol, HDL, will also decrease. Moreover, exercise cannot make up for the harm caused by sitting for long periods of time. Sitting itself is harmful, said Tony Yancey, a professor of health services in Los Angeles, USA. Experiments conducted by the International Diabetes Association also concluded that even 2 hours of exercise a day cannot make up for the disadvantages of being glued to a chair. Mark Hamilton, a microbiologist at the University of Missouri in the United States, said that the physiological mechanism of sitting is completely different from that of walking and exercise. Sitting for a long time is not the same as lack of exercise. The two have completely different effects on the body. When people sit in front of a screen for more than 4 hours, blood levels of C-reactive protein, an inflammatory response, are twice as high as when they sit in front of a screen for less than 2 hours. However, Taiwanese people sit really long. A survey by the National Health Administration found that the average working population aged 26 to 45 spends up to 7 hours sedentary a day. You may think that sitting is the only way to work and you have no choice but to sit. This is not true. In a 24-hour day, excluding the 6 to 8 hours of sleep, the remaining 16 hours all depend on you. Should you walk over and talk to your colleagues, or use email or MSN? Climb the stairs or take the elevator? Do you spend half an hour after a meal watching TV or taking out the trash? Online shopping or shopping? The good news is that as little as a minute of standing up or stretching can help hormone-sensitive lipogene begin to take effect. Research from the University of Queensland also found that even if you sit for a long time, the more opportunities you have to move during this period, the less C-reactive protein you will have and the thinner your waist will be. Dr. Lu Kenhong suggests that when you go to work, set a time on your computer or mobile phone and get up and move every 45 to 50 minutes. Of course, some people choose a more drastic method, standing to work, and this is becoming more and more popular. Including Google, Twitter, Facebook, AOL, German BMW, etc. have provided standing desks for employees to choose from. Of Facebook's approximately 2,000 employees, 200 to 250 choose standing desks. Google has also included standing desks as an employee health plan. There are also companies such as BMW and Japan's Nakano Pharmaceutical that provide resistance balls to replace office chairs. Employees sitting on rolling resistance balls not only strengthened their core muscles, but some also lowered their triglycerides. Where there is demand there is supply. Steelcase, a well-known office furniture brand, has launched a height-adjustable desk. Sales of height-adjustable desks and stepper desks have increased fivefold in the past 5 years. Some companies in Taiwan, such as Trend Micro, have also begun to promote standing meetings. Because it is more concise to hold a meeting while standing, and you will be more focused when listening while standing, and the meeting effect will be better. Second, International Federation of Nutritional Sciences. Source: ChatGPT. The International Union of Nutritional Sciences, IUNS, is a non-governmental organization dedicated to promoting research, education, and application of nutritional science worldwide. The organization was founded in 1948 as one of the special advisory bodies of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. The purposes of IUNS include: promote the development and exchange of nutritional science, support nutrition education and training in various countries and regions, promote the role of nutritional science in solving global health problems, promote international coordination and cooperation on nutrition policies. Members of the organization include nutritionists, nutrition experts, government officials, representatives of non-governmental organizations and professionals in related fields from various countries and regions. Through conferences, workshops, publications, and other activities, IUNS works to increase awareness of nutritional science and advance nutritional health worldwide. Source: Wikipedia. The International Union of Nutritional Sciences, IUNS, is an academic organization composed of nutritional science groups from around the world. Third, American Journal of Medicine. Source: ChatGPT. There are many medical journals in the United States, some of which are influential and prestigious in the medical community. The following are some well-known medical journals in the United States. New England Journal of Medicine, NEJM, one of the most influential journals in the American medical community, publishing high-quality medical research and review articles. Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, published by the American Medical Association, covering research and review articles in all areas of medicine. The Lancet, although based in the United Kingdom, it is also popular in the United States and is a comprehensive journal spanning the fields of medicine and public health. Annals of Internal Medicine, a journal published by the American College of Internal Medicine that covers original research, reviews, and guidelines in all areas of internal medicine. JAMA Internal Medicine, formerly Archives of Internal Medicine, published by JAMA, it focuses on research and reviews in the field of internal medicine. Pediatrics, a journal published by the American Academy of Pediatrics that focuses on research and reviews in the field of pediatrics. American Journal of Public Health, published by the American Public Health Association, covering research and commentary on all aspects of public health. These journals publish a large number of original research, review articles, and editorials every year, which have a profound impact on the development and practice of the medical community. Source: Wikipedia. JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, is a peer-reviewed medical journal published in the United States. It publishes original research, reviews and editorials covering all aspects of biomedicine. The journal is published weekly by the American Medical Association. Fourth, Sitting for long periods of time increases all-cause mortality. Source: ChatGPT. Prolonged sitting is thought to be associated with increased all-cause mortality. Prolonged sitting is linked to many health problems, including cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, certain cancers, and mental health problems. These health risks may partially explain the association between prolonged sitting and increased all-cause mortality. Many studies have found that prolonged sitting is associated with an increased risk of early death. Even among people who exercise, spending the rest of their time sitting may increase the risk of early death. Therefore, for health, in addition to engaging in appropriate exercise, it is equally important to reduce the time you spend sitting. Some steps are recommended to reduce sedentary time, including: stand up regularly and move around every once in a while. Use a standing desk or adjust your workstation so you can switch between standing and sitting. Increase daily activity, such as walking or biking instead of driving, using the stairs instead of the elevator, etc. While watching TV, take advantage of commercial breaks to stand or move. Participate in outdoor activities with friends or family, such as walking or playing ball. These simple behavioral changes can help reduce the amount of time you spend sitting, helping to maintain your health and reduce your risk of dying early. Source: G Health. According to statistics, about 31% of people over the age of 15 worldwide are physically inactive, leading to about 30,000 deaths every year. In addition to physical inactivity, sedentary behavior is a serious problem and a significant number of people engage in it over a long period of time. For example, Americans spend 55% of their waking hours, 7.7 hours a day, in sedentary behavior, and Europeans spend 40% of their leisure time, 2.7 hours a day, watching TV. It is hypothesized that physical inactivity is influenced by a variety of factors, including traffic congestion, air pollution, a shortage of parks or sidewalks, and a lack of sports or leisure facilities. TV watching and mobile phone use are positively correlated with a sedentary lifestyle. Based on this socio-cultural background, sedentary behavior is expected to continue to rise. Sedentary lifestyles have a significant impact on the overall health of the global population, with many people worldwide practicing sedentary lifestyles and the prevalence of associated non-communicable diseases increasing. It is well known that physical inactivity, or lack of physical activity, has adverse effects on health. Physical inactivity is the fourth leading risk factor for global mortality, accounting for 6% of global mortality. Although sedentary behavior poses considerable risks to health and contributes to the prevalence of various diseases, it is mostly related to physical activity in clinical practice. Education focuses on increasing physical activity levels and less on reducing sedentary behavior. In addition to understanding and informing patients about the health impacts of a sedentary lifestyle, healthcare providers in all fields, including clinicians, should reflect on its importance in policy. Sedentary behavior was proposed in 2012 as any waking behavior, which is currently the most widely used definition of sedentary behavior. This includes watching TV, playing video games, using a computer, sitting at school or work, and sitting while commuting. When sitting or lying down, our energy expenditure is below 1.5 metabolic equivalents, MET. When quantitatively classified according to activity intensity, physical activity can be divided into 1.0 to 1.5 MET, sedentary behavior, 1.6 to 2.9 MET, light, 3 to 5.9, moderate intensity, and greater than or equal to 6 MET, high intensity. A sedentary lifestyle increases all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease, CVD, type 2 diabetes mellitus, T2DM, hypertension, and cancers, breast, colon, colorectal, endometrial, and epithelial risk of ovarian cancer. There is no dispute that prolonged periods of sedentary behavior are associated with adverse disease outcomes. However, patterns of sedentary time can vary even within the same total amount of time, and little is known about the specific patterns of sedentary time that contribute to more serious harm to health. One study reports that brief periods of sitting and intermittent periods of physical activity provide relative health benefits, even if the total time spent sitting is equal. It has been reported that there is a negative correlation between total sedentary time and moderate to high-intensity physical activity, with waist circumference, body mass index, triglyceride levels, and 2-hour postprandial plasma glucose levels decreasing as the number of sedentary time interruptions increases. In addition, when light or moderate intensity physical activity interrupts long-term sitting time, systolic and diastolic blood pressure decreases by 2-3 mmHg, while diabetic patients, 88% of the population with hypertension, interrupt long-term sitting time through light physical activity, or simple muscle training. During sitting time, systolic blood pressure is reduced by 14-16 mmHg, and diastolic blood pressure is reduced by 8-10 mmHg. A sedentary lifestyle is associated with metabolic dysfunction, such as increased triglycerides and plasma high-density cholesterol, HDL, and decreased insulin sensitivity. Lipoprotein lipase, LPL, is a protein that interacts at the cellular level. It is known that low LPL concentration will reduce HDL levels and affect severe hypertension, dyslipidemia caused by diabetes, and metabolic disorders caused by aging. Prevalence of metabolic syndrome and coronary artery disease. Moreover, LPL activity decreases due to lack of physical activity. Lack of physical activity suppresses LPL activity in skeletal muscle and rapidly signals impaired lipid metabolism. The fact that muscle LPL activity is highly sensitive to physical inactivity and low-intensity muscle contractile activity may serve as evidence supporting the theory that sedentary behavior is a risk factor for various metabolic diseases. Lack of physical activity reduces bone density. One study of healthy adult men and women found that 12 weeks of bed rest reduced the mineral density of the lumbar spine, femoral neck, and greater trochanter by 1%-4%. A sedentary lifestyle is strongly associated with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and premature death, and total daily sitting time and television viewing time are associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality. In a study that analyzed mortality in people who spent more than 10 hours a day sitting versus less than 5 hours a day, sitting time was significantly associated with all-cause mortality. In a study examining the association between TV viewing time and all-cause mortality, people who watched more than 6 hours of TV per day had twice the risk of all-cause death than those who watched less than 2 hours per day, compared with those who watched less than 2 hours per day. People who watched more than 4 hours of TV had a risk of death from all causes that was 1.5 times higher than those who watched less than 2 hours a day. Sedentary time is independently associated with all-cause mortality, CVD morbidity or mortality, morbidity or mortality from certain cancers, breast, colon, colorectal, endometrial, and epithelial ovarian cancer, and T2DM. In particular, the adverse effects of prolonged sitting time are more pronounced among people who engage in low levels of physical activity compared with those who engage in regular physical activity. Therefore, compared with the high physical activity group, the relative risk of all-cause mortality was 59% higher in the low physical activity group. The prevalence of T2DM increases with increased sedentary time, a fact that has been consistently documented in various studies. In T2DM risk assessments that considered sedentary time and physical activity, T2DM risk increased with increasing daily sedentary time, and this negative effect was not offset by physical activity levels. The risk of cardiovascular disease, CVD, also increases with daily sitting time, and although physical activity levels slightly offset this effect, sitting time still significantly increases risk. This suggests that physical activity levels do not offset the effects of sedentary time on the risk of CVD and T2DM. Several biological mechanisms may explain the impact of daily sedentary time on the risk of CVD and DM. While prolonged sitting is known to affect muscle glucose transporter content and activity, an animal study observed that prolonged inactivity in muscles reduces LPL activity, which regulates blood lipid concentrations and carbohydrate metabolism through cellular pathways distinct from the normal exercise response. A sedentary lifestyle affects blood pressure through various mechanisms and subsequently changes blood pressure through changes in cardiac output and total peripheral vascular resistance. Prolonged sitting reduces metabolic demand and systemic blood flow, reduces insulin sensitivity and vascular function by stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, and simultaneously increases oxidative stress, promoting a low-grade inflammatory cascade. It is reported that among sedentary behaviors, compared with interactive sedentary behaviors, driving, using computers, non-interactive sedentary behaviors, watching TV, sleeping, will further increase the risk of hypertension. It is reported that sedentary behaviors are associated with a direct link between high blood pressure and high risk. Sedentary behavior induces metabolic dysfunction characterized by increased triglyceride levels, decreased HDL cholesterol levels, and decreased insulin sensitivity. One study reported that sedentary behavior increases the incidence of newly diagnosed dyslipidemia in women and increases the risk of dyslipidemia in both men and women. In contrast, moderate to vigorous physical activity, MVPA, was inversely associated with triglyceride levels. There is a significant correlation between sedentary time and waist circumference and metabolic risk score. According to research, if the sedentary time increases by 3%, the waist circumference will increase by 1.10 centimeters. Also, because obese patients tend to be less active, increasing activity levels can be used as a treatment. A strategy for obesity. Although this is a well-known fact, the underlying mechanism remains unknown. A 2020 research report stated that the cause of weight gain is sedentary life. According to a Swedish study, the experimental group who wore an 11 kg heavy vest for 8 hours a day was compared with the control group who wore a 1 kg light vest for 8 hours a day. After 3 weeks, the experimental group lost 1.6 kg in weight, while the control group lost 1.6 kg. 0.3 kg. In addition, animal studies have revealed an energy balance system called a gravitostat that maintains consistent body weight. Part of the reason for this adjustment is the effect on appetite, where the system requires a personal weighing machine to function properly. The Swedish study found that humans have similar built-in scales. Weight vests can increase weight scale values, thereby inducing weight loss. Individuals who sit for long periods of time tend to have lower body weight scale values, which explains why sitting for long periods of time is associated with obesity and poor health. One study examined the association between sedentary behavior and cancer rates, and found that the risk of cancer was 13% higher in those who sat for the longest periods of time compared with the group who sat for the shortest periods of time. Another study reported that sitting time increases overall cancer risk by 20%. Sitting for long periods of time increases the risk of colorectal, endometrial, ovarian, and prostate cancer. It has been reported that prolonged sitting increases cancer mortality, especially in women. Cancer mortality is significantly associated with the incidence of breast, colorectal, endometrial, and epithelial ovarian cancer. Increased total sedentary time is positively associated with colon and endometrial cancer. In addition, television viewing time is also positive correlation with colon and endometrial cancer. Sedentary behavior can lead to metabolic dysfunctions such as hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, and changes in circulating levels of sex hormones. Alterations in circulating levels of sex hormones may be associated with hormone-related cancers, such as breast and endometrial cancer. In addition, sedentary behavior induces low-grade chronic systemic inflammation, and sedentary time is associated with inflammation-related markers, such as C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, leptin, and leptin to adiponectin ratio, and chronic inflammation can trigger cancer growth. Prolonged sitting time is linked to chronic knee pain. An analysis of the association between chronic knee pain and total daily sedentary time, 10 hours, showed that individuals who spent more time sitting had chronic knee pain. The incidence is higher. In particular, sitting for more than 10 hours a day is significantly associated with chronic knee pain. While people who engage in more physical activity have less chronic knee pain, women who sit for more than 10 hours while engaging in more physical activity are at a high risk of developing chronic knee pain. The study recommends that individuals reduce sedentary time to less than 10 hours a day. Past studies have observed that a sedentary lifestyle leads to adverse health outcomes regardless of physical activity, and that a sedentary lifestyle is independently associated with mortality that is not compensated for by physical activity. However, some recent studies report that increased physical activity can counteract the detrimental effects of sedentary behavior. In particular, the countervailing effect was more pronounced in people who were less physically active. A meta-analysis reports that people who engage in high levels of moderate-intensity physical activity, 60 to 75 minutes per day, do not experience increased mortality even if they sit for more than 8 hours per day. There was no difference in mortality between the most active group who spent less than 4 hours sitting per day, more than 2,130 METS-min per week, and the equally active group who spent more than 8 hours per day, more than 2,130 METS-min per week. Difference. However, watching TV for more than 3 hours a day was associated with increased mortality regardless of physical activity, and those who watched more than 5 hours a day had significantly higher mortality. Similarly, one study showed that sitting for more than 9 hours per day in the low physical activity group, less than 600 METS-min per week, was significantly associated with increased CVD risk. In the more physically active group, sedentary time was not significantly associated with CVD risk. In other words, while increased sitting time increases mortality among people who are rarely physically active, adequate physical activity appears to offset the effect of increased sitting time on mortality. Among the least active people, less than 17 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day, replacing 30 minutes of sitting time per day with light physical activity reduced the risk of death by 14%, while replacing it with moderate to vigorous physical activity reduced the risk of death. The risk is reduced by 45%. However, among the most active people, more than 38 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day, replacing sitting time with light physical activity or moderate to vigorous physical activity was not associated with a reduced risk of death. A recently published study showed that sedentary behavior is independently associated with the risk of cancer death, with longer periods of sitting associated with a higher risk of cancer death. In this study, individuals in the top third of the sedentary group had a significantly higher risk of cancer death than those in the bottom third. However, replacing 30 minutes of prolonged sitting with light physical activity was associated with an 8% reduction in cancer mortality, and replacing prolonged sitting with moderate intensity physical activity was associated with a 31% reduction in cancer mortality. Sedentary lifestyles are spreading globally and, as a result, related health problems are increasing. A sedentary lifestyle affects the human body through various mechanisms, reducing lipoprotein lipase activity, muscle glucose and protein transporter activity, impairing lipid metabolism, and reducing carbohydrate metabolism. Additionally, it reduces cardiac output and systemic blood flow while activating the sympathetic nervous system, ultimately reducing insulin sensitivity and vascular function and increasing the incidence of hormone-related cancers. Increased weight gain, obesity, and chronic inflammation caused by sedentary behavior are cancer risk factors that have a wide range of adverse effects on the human body, including increased all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease mortality, cancer risk, and diabetes and hypertension and risk of metabolic disorders such as dyslipidemia. For musculoskeletal conditions such as joint pain and osteoporosis, reducing sedentary behavior and increasing physical activity are important to promote health. Research has found that short intermittent physical activity, light physical activity or simple muscle training can be beneficial to health. Health outcomes also vary depending on the type of sedentary behavior, with watching TV leading to the worst outcomes. This may be due to the fact that watching TV is a passive sedentary behavior, as people often snack while watching TV. Therefore, during various types of sedentary behavior, individuals should try to avoid watching television and minimize snacking while watching television. Even if total daily sedentary time cannot be reduced for unavoidable reasons, it is recommended to engage in equal to or more than 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity per week, as research has found that physical activity can counteract the adverse effects of sedentary behavior. If adequate physical activity is not possible, individuals should at least engage in light physical activity, as even light physical activity can obtain health benefits. Although it is not sufficient, people should find ways to try to increase the level of physical activity intensity where circumstances permit. 5th. University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Research Center. Source: ChatGPT. The University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, is a world-renowned cancer research and treatment center located in Houston, Texas, USA. Here is some information about the center. History and background. Founded in 1941, MD Anderson Cancer Center is one of the largest cancer centers in the world and one of 3 comprehensive cancer centers recognized by the National Cancer Institute. It is managed by the University of Texas System with the mission of cultivating and attracting the best cancer research talent from around the world. Research areas. MD Anderson Cancer Center has made important contributions to the research of various cancer types, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, lymphoma, etc. The center is dedicated to translating basic research findings into clinical practice to deliver state-of-the-art cancer treatments. Diagnosis and treatment services. MD Anderson Cancer Center provides comprehensive cancer diagnosis and treatment services, including oncology, surgical treatment, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, etc. The center has a team of the world's leading doctors, scientists, and medical professionals to provide patients with personalized treatment plans. Education and training. MD Anderson Cancer Center also has education and training programs to train future cancer researchers and medical professionals. The center offers doctoral, master's and postdoctoral training programs, as well as continuing medical education and clinical internship opportunities. Overall, MD Anderson Cancer Center plays a pivotal role in cancer research, diagnosis, and treatment, and provides hope and support to cancer patients around the world. Source: Wikipedia. The University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, UTMDA, is located in Houston, Texas, and was founded in 1941. It is a member of the University of Texas System and is a large specialized hospital integrating tumor clinical diagnosis, comprehensive treatment, and basic medical research. The University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center is the largest cancer center in the United States and one of the original 3 comprehensive cancer centers in the country. 6th. Risks of sitting for long periods of time. Source: ChatGPT. The risks of sitting for long periods of time refer to the inactive behavior that can have negative health effects. Here are some possible risks of sitting for long periods of time. Increased risk of cardiovascular disease. There is a link between prolonged sitting and cardiovascular disease. Sitting for long periods of time can cause blood circulation to slow down, increasing the risk of heart disease and stroke. Increased risk of obesity. There is a strong link between prolonged sitting and obesity. Lack of exercise will reduce energy consumption, increase fat accumulation, and lead to weight gain. Accelerated muscle atrophy. Sitting still for long periods of time can cause muscle atrophy, especially in the lower back, buttocks, and leg muscles. This can lead to poor posture and lower back pain. Impact on posture. Sitting for long periods of time can lead to poor posture and increase stress on the neck, back and spine, leading to pain and discomfort. Increased cancer risk. Some studies show that sitting for long periods of time is associated with an increased risk of certain cancers, e.g., colon, breast. Impact on mental health. Sitting for long periods of time may be associated with increased feelings of anxiety, depression, and stress. To reduce the risk of prolonged sitting, you can take the following steps. Get up and move around every once in a while and do some stretches. Use a standing workstation or sitting ball instead of traditional seating to reduce long periods of sitting. Set a timer to remind yourself to get up and move around every once in a while. Participate in more physical exercise and do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise every week, such as brisk walking, cycling, etc. By reducing the amount of time you spend sitting and increasing your physical activity, you can reduce your risk of the health problems listed above and improve your overall health. Source: yuanqi.com. We all know that sitting for long periods of time is very harmful to health, but most people have to sit all the time while working. But according to a new study, 22 minutes of vigorous exercise a day can offset the health hazards of sitting for long periods of time. Most modern people work while sitting, often working 8 hours a day. Many people even work overtime on a regular basis, that is, sitting for more than 8 hours a day. According to a new study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, sitting for more than 12 hours a day increases the risk of death by 38%, but doing 22 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise a day can significantly reduce the risk of death. Even if you don't quite hit the 22 minutes, some moderate to vigorous activity can still help reduce mortality. The study included analysis of data from 11,989 participants in Norway, Sweden, and the United States, and while the study participants were all 50 or older, according to Healthline interview sports medicine physician Dr. Tracy Zoslow, the results of this study may also make an impact on young people. As sitting for long periods of time is harmful to the body, many people think of simply standing to work, and many office workers even buy standing desks in groups. However, according to a study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, JACC, in 2019, the results subvert everyone's thinking. Standing instead of sitting cannot offset the damage. JACC believes that only vigorous exercise can effectively compensate for the damage caused by prolonged sitting. Physiotherapist Jian Wenren also has the same opinion. Jian Wenren once reminded in an interview that standing at work is also harmful to the body, such as varicose veins and backache. When the posture is still, the stress points in the body are fixed, and blood circulation will be affected. So what are the so-called moderate and vigorous exercises? Generally speaking, the so-called moderate intensity exercise includes non-competitive exercise in which you can breathe and speak normally during exercise, such as brisk walking, leisurely cycling, slow swimming, and social dancing. High-intensity exercises when breathing becomes abnormal during exercise. Shortness of breath and increased panting, such as aerobics, cycling, running, ball games, etc. Wang Zongdao, chief physician of the Department of Cardiology at National Taiwan University, once said in an interview that it is generally recommended to exercise for at least 30 minutes a day. In fact, it can be divided into 30 minutes in total. You can also incorporate more activities into your daily life, such as taking the stairs instead of the escalator when taking the MRT. Or do squats during work breaks, while watching TV at night, do more housework, gardening activities at home. Many different things can keep yourself healthier. Sitting for long periods of time is considered a chronic suicide behavior, which may cause many health harms, and may affect all parts of the body. Sitting for long periods of time every day may lead to obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and constipation. Hemorrhoids, shoulder and neck tightness, muscle and tendon stiffness, muscle loss, venous emboli, dementia, and other risks of diseases. 7th. Sitting and shaking feet. Shaking your feet for 3 minutes equals 20 minutes of walking. Sitting can soften blood vessels. Source: Good Morning Health. Endless work, endless overtime shifts. Modern office workers often have to sit for long periods of time. In addition to staring at the computer screen, which can easily cause eye soreness and dryness, back pain, shoulder and neck stiffness are also common. Question: Sitting still for a long time without moving your legs is more likely to cause decreased blood flow and stiff blood vessels. However, a study in the United States believes that if you can step on your feet and move your legs frequently when sitting for a long time, you can reduce the damage to blood vessels caused by sitting for a long time. According to a report in the New York Times, the health problems that may result from sitting still include weight gain and the risk of diabetes. This is because when muscles are not being used, energy requirements are reduced and sugar is not drawn from the blood, causing blood sugar levels to remain high and increasing the risk of blood sugar spikes. The University of London in the UK conducted a survey of 13,000 women aged 37 to 78 in the UK. The results showed that women who sit for more than 7 hours a day and have no habit of shaking their feet have a 30% higher mortality rate, while women who often shake their feet have a lower mortality rate than those who sit for less than 5 hours a day and rarely shake their feet. 37%. In addition, a study by Chikyo University in Japan also pointed out that shaking your feet continuously for 3 minutes can increase the temperature of the calf by 1 degree. The effect is equivalent to walking for 20 minutes. It not only helps improve blood circulation, but also relieves hip joint pain. In addition, prolonged sitting can also lead to reduced blood flow to the legs. When the blood flow decreases, the friction of the blood vessel wall will also decrease. The cells arranged in the blood vessel wall will feel the reduced friction and produce proteins, leading to hardening and narrowing of the blood vessels. Of course, when blood flow is low, blood vessels require less elasticity, but when blood flow increases and blood vessels continue to stiffen, it may lead to increased blood pressure and may increase the risk of atherosclerosis. Therefore, more and more health information and suggestions hope that people can get up and move around more to contract the leg muscles and maintain stable blood flow in the legs. However, in real life, there are many situations where it is impossible to get up and move around, such as long meetings, rides, etc. Researchers at the University of Missouri have confirmed in a small study that moving the legs while sitting for long periods of time can maintain stable blood flow in the legs and avoid injury. The study was published in the American Journal of Physiology Heart and Circulatory Physiology. In the study, researchers at the University of Missouri measured blood flow in 11 healthy volunteers as an indicator of artery health. The subjects were then asked to sit continuously for 3 hours, during which one leg had to remain completely still, while the other foot was moved under the instructions of the researcher by pressing the heel on the ground for 1 minute and then remaining still for 4 minutes. During the 3-hour observation period, the researchers continuously monitored blood flow in the subjects' legs. It was found that blood flow in the resting leg was significantly reduced, while blood flow in the active leg was increased. 3 hours later, the researchers tested how the volunteers' arteries responded to changes in blood pressure. They found that the reaction force of the stationary leg was lower than the baseline value at the beginning. Conversely, the reaction force of the active leg was better than the beginning. Study leader Jaume Padilla said that while the research team also expected that the level of leg activity might affect blood vessel responsiveness, the results of this study showed a greater difference than they had guessed. Therefore, people who often need to sit for long periods of time, in addition to getting up and walking around and moving their muscles and bones from time to time, can also step lightly and move their legs while sitting to help maintain vascular function. 8th. Sitting for long periods of time causes depression. Source: ChatGPT. Sitting for long periods of time can lead to physical and mental health problems, including depression and anxiety. This can be caused by a lack of exercise and physical activity, as well as sitting in a fixed position for long periods of time. Physical activity is important for releasing chemicals in the body such as endorphins and dopamine, which are beneficial in improving mood states and reducing depression. Therefore, it is important to stay physically active and avoid sitting for long periods of time to maintain physical and mental health. Sitting for too long may lead to 6 diseases including cancer and depression. Source: Yahoo News. We all know that sitting for a long time is bad for the body. According to statistics, sitting for a long time may affect 6 diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, or cancer, and is also related to depression. Because the human body is designed for standing and walking, not for sitting for long periods of time. Moreover, sitting for long periods of time compresses the gastrointestinal tract, worsening gastrointestinal function and making it easier to accumulate fat. Doctors remind that when the amount of activity decreases and the metabolic capacity is reduced, the chance of developing diabetes will be greatly increased. Sitting at a desk for a long time and staring at the computer screen is a daily routine for many office workers. In addition, commuting to and from work, whether taking a bus or driving, often requires sitting for a long time. Most office workers spend the whole day, at least 7 or 8 hours were spent sitting. But in fact, long-term sitting will have adverse effects on human health. According to statistics, it may cause 6 diseases including heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. Physician Che Shinwei explained that sitting for long periods of time can easily lead to obesity, which in turn affects the heart system. People with bloating are also more likely to compress their gastrointestinal tract, worsening gastrointestinal function and making it easier for them to accumulate fat. It may also increase insulin resistance, more than doubling the risk of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And not only physical diseases can also affect mental state, and are highly related to depression. Sitting may also cause hunchback or other spinal problems, which can seriously affect the skeletal muscles, especially the spine. Doctors specifically remind that sitting for long periods of time will weaken many large muscle groups in the body, causing muscle loss. For example, the thigh muscles and gluteal muscles, and the back muscles will also be stretched due to long periods of sitting and lose their original tension. And it may not be possible to make up for it with other sports. It's usually fine, but I still need to get up and move around more. 9th. Reduce sitting and increase exercise. Source: ChatGPT. Sitting less and moving more is one of the important steps to improving your physical and mental health. Here are some suggestions. Take frequent breaks, get up, walk around and stretch every once in a while. It is recommended to get up and move around every 30 minutes to an hour. Increase physical activity. Look for opportunities to increase physical activity, such as walking, jogging, swimming, biking, etc. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic exercise each week. Exercise classes. Joining a fitness class or exercise group can provide more motivation and social interaction while helping you stay active. Build an exercise habit. Incorporate exercise into your schedule and make it a part of your daily routine. Choose a sport or activity that you enjoy so it's easier to stick with it. Regular activity. Perform strength training activities at least twice a week to strengthen muscles and bones and improve physical performance. Through these methods, you can reduce the time you spend sitting and increase your physical activity, which can help improve your mental health and reduce depression. Is exercise helpful after sitting for a long time? Source: Care Online. Modern people often sit in chairs all day long. They spend almost 8 hours a day at work sitting. In addition, when eating, riding in cars, watching TV, and looking at computers, we all maintain a sitting posture. Even if you want to go to the gym, you may still take a taxi, ride a bike, or drive there, and you will still be sitting down. If you do the math, we sit on chairs and sofas for a terrifying amount of time. Many studies in the past have shown that prolonged sitting is the enemy of modern people's health. When humans finally stood up after millions of years of evolution, we retreated to chairs, causing many health problems such as spine, vision, and pain. The longer we sit, the more we suffer from heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and breast cancer. The chances of cancer and colorectal cancer will increase, and the most direct result is a shortened lifespan. Yes, the longer you sit, the shorter your lifespan will be. Seeing this, you may be thinking, there's no way, how could I not sit properly when I'm sitting in the office? Or commuting plus traffic jams will take an hour or two, and I only need this time. I can sit obediently and hold the steering wheel. Since it is impossible to reduce sedentary time, some people may think, that's not easy. Although I sit for a long time, I can just increase my exercise. Go to the gym and participate in boxing and aerobics for an hour, which should be enough. Let's eliminate the disadvantages of sitting for long periods of time. Well, here comes the question, after sitting for a long time, can the harmful effects of sitting for a long time be offset or weakened by just adding strenuous exercise? If this is really effective, how intensely should we exercise and how long should we exercise before it is enough? Also, do you have to do this every day? Or is it enough to exercise 2 or 3 days a week? In order to answer these questions, we can find the answers from a comprehensive analysis paper in December 2020. In this paper, there are a total of 44,370 research subjects, all of whom are middle-aged and silver-haired people over 40 years old. The average age is close to 66 years old. They live in countries such as Norway, Sweden, and the United States. The research tracks personal time for about 4 years to 14.5 years. During this process, 7.8% of participants, or 3,451 people, died. In this study, we will first find out how long these people exercise and how long they sit every day, and then divide them into 3 groups. If divided into 3 groups based on sedentary time, the group with the shortest sitting time averaged 8.5 hours a day, the moderate group sat for 9.4 hours, and the group with the longest sitting time averaged 10.7 hours a day. As for distinguishing the 3 groups based on exercise time, the group with the least average amount of exercise exercised for 2.3 minutes a day, the group that spent the longest time exercising for 34.3 minutes, and the group in the middle spent an average of 11.2 minutes exercising every day. Okay, let's look directly at the research results. Not surprisingly, mortality correlated well with time spent active or sedentary. The longer the time spent sitting still and the shorter the time spent exercising, the higher the mortality rate. Relatively speaking, people who have both the characteristics of sitting for the shortest time and exercising for the longest time have fewer deaths. Next, if we look only at the group of people with the highest amount of exercise, averaging 34.3 minutes of exercise per day, and then divide them into groups based on how long they sit for a long time, we find that the group that sits for a longer period of time will still have a shorter mortality rate than those who sit for a longer period of time. Group came higher, but there was no statistically significant difference. Note that this refers to people with the same average amount of exercise. Then we distinguish between the length of sitting time and mortality. That is, we want to see whether the length of sitting time will affect mortality when the amount of exercise is the same. Using the same method, the study also identified groups with moderate physical activity, spending an average of 11.2 minutes a day on exercise, and then divided them into groups according to sedentary time. It can be found that the longer the sedentary time, the higher the mortality rate, and this result is valid. Statistical difference. For the group with the least amount of exercise, spending an average of 2.3 minutes a day on exercise, the effects of prolonged sitting are more obvious. The longer they sit, the higher their mortality rate. Therefore, from the results of this experiment, we can say that after we sit for a long time, if we spend 30 to 40 minutes a day doing some moderate intensity exercise, it seems that the disadvantages of sitting for a long time can be offset. Because after sedentary time was divided into groups, there was no statistical difference between the groups. Many studies in the past have confirmed that prolonged sitting is related to various diseases and can easily lead to death. What everyone would like to ask is, can exercise offset the disadvantages of sitting for long periods of time? If it is true, what exercises are effective and how long should they be done? This is what this study attempts to answer. According to this study, if you are a sedentary person, it is recommended to engage in at least moderate exercise for 30 to 40 minutes every day to reduce the negative effects of sitting for a long time. If the usual sitting time is fine, less than 8.5 hours, and there is still some movement in life and work, such as business running outside, medical staff who need to walk around to take care of patients, or people who like gardening, for groups such as seniors who do not sit all the time, such as those who clean and visit the house, if they exercise for an average of 11 minutes a day, their mortality rate will be similar to that of groups who exercise a lot but also sit for a long time. In other words, when you move more and sit less in daily life, it is okay even if you don't spend a lot of time on dedicated exercise. Sitting for too long a day, more than 10.7 hours a day, is related to increased mortality. In particular, the less activity, the more obvious the correlation. Seeing this, we know very well that if we lead a sedentary life every day and do not do more exercise, the mortality rate will be the highest. Therefore, please remember that if you want to be active, you must move. Sitting for too long will make you sick. If you have to sit for long periods of time every day due to work or commuting, remember to do moderate exercise. Doing at least 30 to 40 minutes of moderate exercise every day can offset or weaken the negative effects of prolonged sitting. Of course, you can also try to spend less time sitting, usually take the stairs, ride a bicycle or walk to commute, use a desk that can be raised to work in a standing position, and try to sit down when talking on the phone or discussing things with colleagues. Stand. By activating the myofascial network more often, you can reduce many subsequent health problems. 10th. Walk 8,000 steps a day. Source: ChatGPT. There are many benefits to 8,000 steps per day, and many studies have identified the benefits of this goal. Here are some research findings related to walking 8,000 steps a day. Heart health. Research shows that walking 8,000 steps or more daily can help improve heart health. This level of physical activity can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, including heart disease and stroke. Weight management. Walking 8,000 steps a day can help control your weight. This level of physical activity helps burn calories and increases metabolism, helping to reduce the risk of weight gain. Emotional and mental health. Research shows that moderate physical activity is very beneficial for improving mood and mental health. Walking 8,000 steps a day helps release chemicals like endorphins and dopamine in the body, which can help improve your mood and reduce depression and anxiety. Bone health. Walking is a low-impact exercise that helps strengthen bones. Walking 8,000 steps a day can help prevent osteoporosis and bone damage. Sleep quality. Engaging in moderate amounts of physical activity can improve sleep quality. Walking 8,000 steps a day can help regulate sleep patterns, help you fall asleep faster and improve sleep depth. Overall, walking 8,000 steps a day can help improve physical and mental health, reduce the risk of chronic disease, and improve quality of life. This is an achievable and sustainable goal that is feasible for many people. Walking 8,000 steps a day will be effective. Research confirms, walking can help reduce the risk of death by 16.5%. Source: Chow Health. As long as you develop the habit of walking every week, can you have a chance to offset the health problems caused by sitting for a long time and not exercising? A recent study published in the authoritative journal JAMA Network confirmed that if you can maintain the habit of walking 8,000 steps for more than 3 days in a week, it will help reduce the risk of all-cause death and cardiovascular death. For those who lack time to exercise, it is very important for modern people. A research team from Kyoto University in Japan and the University of California in the United States used data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, NHANES, from 2005 to 2006 and included 3,101 subjects in the survey for analysis. The subjects were asked to wear a pedometer on their waist while awake for 7 consecutive days and record their steps at 60-second intervals every day. The final study included those who wore the pedometer for more than 10 hours on at least 4 days. After 10 years of random visits, the research team determined that 439 subjects, 14.2%, died from various causes, 148 subjects, 5.3%, died from cardiovascular disease. After adjusting for potential confounders, the research team pointed out that compared with people who do not walk at all, people who walk can expect to experience the following health benefits. People who walk more than 8,000 steps 1 to 2 days a week have a 14.9% lower risk of all-cause death within 10 years, a 8.1% lower risk of cardiovascular death within 10 years. People who walk more than 8,000 steps 3 to 7 days a week have a 16.5% lower risk of all-cause death within 10 years, a 8.4% lower risk of cardiovascular death within 10 years. As the number of walking steps per week increased, the risk of death within 10 years began to decrease rapidly, and reached a stable level in those who walked 8,000 steps or more than 3 days per week. Walking was associated with protective effects even after adjusting for average daily step count. The protective association stabilized when individuals took sufficient steps per day for 3 or more days. Study author Dr. Kausuk Inu said the results were found across all age groups, and the positive benefits were regardless of gender. He believes that with the popularity of smartphones and mobile wearable devices that count daily steps, monitoring daily steps has been regarded by doctors and public health personnel as a practical strategy to promote physical activity among people. In fact, many systematic reviews and meta-analyses have confirmed the association between daily step count and all-cause mortality and cardiovascular events. However, Dr. Inu also emphasized that this research also has its limitations. Because daily step count was measured for only 1 week, there is a lack of data on the impact of changes in physical activity on mortality risk. In addition, given previous research showing that pedometers miss 20% of daily steps when obese adults walk at a moderate pace, the possibility of measurement error cannot be ruled out. Finally, subjects may become more active knowing they are wearing a monitoring device, such that some inactive individuals may be misclassified as active. Even though the above-mentioned research has certain limitations, regular walking or walking after meals does have multiple benefits for physical health. A study published in PLOS One pointed out that walking after meals can reduce gas and bloating. While walking helps accelerate gastric emptying, it does not have as severe an impact on the gastrointestinal tract as jogging and brisk walking. Nutrients shows that moderate walking can regulate blood sugar after meals, especially for people whose diet contains carbohydrates. To avoid excessive blood sugar levels, diabetic patients also benefit from this. Frontiers in Cardiovascular Medicine believes that walking not only helps lower blood sugar, but also plays a role in lowering blood pressure and reduces the risk of heart disease and stroke. Harvard Medical School also stated that regular walking exercise has the potential to improve mental health because walking can reduce the secretion of adrenaline and cortisol and release endorphins to help relax. Research in Elsevier supports that regular walking exercises can help sleep. Research shows that taking a moderate walk after meals can increase deep sleep at night and prevent feelings of fullness and flatulence from affecting sleep quality. 11th. Guidelines for physical activity and sitting for long periods of time. Source: the paper. According to World Health Organization statistics, 1 in 4 adults and 4 out of 5 adolescents do not get enough physical activity. Regular physical activity is key to preventing and helping manage heart disease, type 2 diabetes and cancer, and may also promote reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety, reduce cognitive decline, improve memory, and promote brain health. The World Health Organization has released the Guidelines on Physical Activity and Sedentary Behavior, hereinafter referred to as the Guidelines. The guide emphasizes that everyone, regardless of age or ability, can be physically active and that every form of activity has a role. The guidelines point out that about 5 hours of physical activity per week can help avoid 5 million deaths worldwide each year. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization, said, "Being physically active is essential for health and happiness. It helps extend life and improve quality of life." For physical activities of different intensities, the guidelines define it this way: light physical activity will not cause a significant increase in heart rate and respiratory rate, such as walking. Moderate intensity physical activity will increase the heart rate and cause some shortness of breath when talking, such as brisk walking, dancing, etc. Vigorous physical activity significantly increase the heart rate and breathing rate, such as cycling, jogging, swimming, carrying heavy objects, climbing stairs, and playing tennis. Dr. Rudiger Kretschke, director of the Department of Health Promotion at the World Health Organization, said, "Physical activity of any type, regardless of duration, can improve health and well-being, but more is always better. If you must be more active instead of sitting still, whether in the workplace or at school, more physical activity should be practiced to combat the harmful effects of sedentary behavior." The previous version of the guidelines recommended that each physical activity should last for at least 10 minutes, but the new guidelines have cancelled this recommendation, because research shows that activity of any duration is beneficial. The previous guidelines also mentioned that adults should engage in at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise per week. The new guidelines set the range of physical activity at 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous exercise. Vigorous exercise. This change is based on the idea that a certain range of physical activity can minimize the risk, but beyond that range, there is no clear benefit, such as all-cause or cardiovascular death. It follows that all physical activity is beneficial, whether as part of work, sport, leisure, or transport, walking, wheelchairs and cycling, through dance, play and everyday household activities such as gardening and cleaning, but be careful to maintain a moderate amount of exercise. Dr. Fiona Breen, director of the WHO's Physical Activity Unit, who led the development of the new WHO guidelines, said, "This new guidelines highlights how important physical activity is for our hearts, bodies, and minds, and how important it is for our hearts, bodies, and minds. How promising results will benefit everyone of all ages and ability levels." The guide has clear exercise recommendations for all types of people. For all adults, including those with chronic diseases or disabilities, the guidelines recommend: aim for 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity physical activity per week, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity physical activity. Carry out moderate or higher intensity muscle training at least 2 days a week, such as lifting irons, core exercises, etc. Reduce sedentary time and exercise as much as possible to offset the harm of prolonged sitting. For children and adolescents aged 5 to 17 years old, including those with disabilities, the guidelines strongly recommend at least an average of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise, mainly aerobic exercise, every day for a week, vigorous activities at least 3 days a week, and exercises that strengthen muscles and bones. Sedentary time, especially screen time, should be limited. The guidelines encourage women to exercise regularly during pregnancy and after childbirth, including a variety of aerobic and muscle strengthening activities. Gentle stretching is also beneficial. For older adults, age 65 or older, the guidelines believe that various forms of physical activity, such as balance functions, strength exercises, and flexibility, are suitable for all older adults. The recommendations emphasize that functional balance and strength training can strengthen the body function and prevent falls. In addition, strengthening muscle exercises is very important. Image source: World Health Organization. 12th. Stand up every 30 minutes after sitting. Scientist: sitting for a long time will lead to early death. It is best to get up and move every 30 minutes. Source: Yahoo News. Modern people often sit in front of the computer for long periods of time due to work requirements. After returning home, they continue to lie on the sofa and become couch potatoes. But did you know that sitting for too long may make you more likely to die early? A study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine on the 11th pointed out that the longer the time of inactivity every day, the higher the risk of premature death. Diaz, a scientist who participated in the study, said that regardless of the amount of exercise, people who are used to sitting for a long time in the office or at home should get up and move after sitting for 30 minutes to help avoid the risk of early death. This study was funded by the National Institutes of Health and Coca-Cola, but did not interfere with the research process, and was jointly conducted by 7 research institutions, researchers tracked the 7,985 Americans over the age of 45. The subjects in the study wore an accelerometer fixed on their hips at least 4 days a week, and the researchers continued to track the mortality of these subjects until September 2015. The study found that the subjects' bodies were in an inactivity state for a total of 12.3 hours out of the 16 hours they were awake every day, and the average time of continuous inactivity was 11.4 minutes. After taking into account factors such as age, gender, education, smoking, and high blood pressure, the research team found that the longer the daily inactivity time and the continuous inactivity time, the greater the chance of early death. A total of 340 subjects died during the observation period. The research team found from the mortality rates of the subjects that those who were inactive for an average of 13.2 hours a day had a mortality rate that was 2.6 times higher than those who were inactive for 11.5 hours a day. Compared with people who were inactive for less than 7.7 minutes, people who were inactive for an average of more than 12.4 minutes had twice the mortality rate. The research team then examined the correlation between daily inactivity time and continuous inactivity time and found that people who had both relatively long periods of time, daily inactivity time of more than 12.5 hours and continuous inactivity time of more than 10 minutes, the mortality rate is higher than that of people who have been exposed to any of the conditions for a longer period of time. The research team observed the inactivity patterns of the subjects and found that those who could control the continuous inactivity time to less than 30 minutes had a mortality rate that was 55% lower than those who had been inactive for more than 30 minutes. The study also found that if subjects had longer and more intense activity periods, it would help reduce the chance of early death. Studies have pointed out in the past that sitting for long periods of time may increase the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and premature death. However, the research team said that this experiment has a tracker, which is different from previous experiments that used subjects' reports, and the results are more accurate. However, the research team admitted that this experiment still has limitations. For example, the tracker cannot know whether the subject is sitting or standing for a long time, nor can it point out that the subject's inactivity is directly related to death. Keith Diaz, the leader of this experiment and an associate researcher at the Department of Pharmacy at Columbia University, said that the American Heart Association encourages the public to sit less, move more, sit less, move more, but did not specify the specific implementation. It's like encouraging people to exercise but not telling them how to exercise. Diaz further pointed out that existing exercise guidelines are quite precise. For example, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that adults get at least 2 hours and 30 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week, plus at least 2 hours of moderate aerobic exercise per week. 2 days of muscle strengthening exercise. Diaz believes that sitting for long periods of time also requires simple rules. For example, for every 30 minutes of sitting, getting up and moving briskly for 5 minutes can reduce the health risks of sitting for a long time. However, he also said that although the results of this study make we are one step closer to a sedentary rule, more research is needed to confirm this experimental result. After the publication of this study, scientists viewed the findings more positively. David A. Alter, associate professor at the University of Toronto, Canada, said that whether sitting for a long time has a negative impact on our health has always been a complex and unclear issue. Alter pointed out that in the past, some scientists have proposed the theory that sitting for a long time may reduce insulin sensitivity, and some scientists have pointed out that sitting for a long time can reduce net calorie consumption. Alter believes that this study is not only rigorously executed, but also has very solid results. The study of daily inactivity time and continuous inactivity time is the biggest contribution of this study. Dr. Mike Loosemore, the main consultant of the British health consulting company Institute of Sport, Exercise and Health, also said that sitting for a long time may cause obesity. He said that people can change their daily life sitting habits. You can stand up when you answer the phone, or change the habit of going to the kitchen to fill water from a cup of water to a half cup of water, so that you can go more often. Every half an hour, use some simple reason to get up and move. Conclusion. To live is to exercise.